retweets done. We can, yep, that went to the Twitters. I'm going to retweet that. Going to retweet this. Get that all set up. Let's get rid of that. We don't need that up. And get that back to right there. And we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, geeks and gadget fans of all sorts and persuasions, welcome to another Monday morning tech chat show on the Sggqa podcast. This is where we spend a little time getting our tech week started right, making sure that we're chatting out the top stories over the last couple days, taking a little time to revisit some stories that might have slipped through the cracks. I'm already seeing some people joining us on the Periscopes, on the YouTubes. This also streams on Twitch. I am streaming to another platform now. What is it that I'm streaming to? Stream.me. I have no control over what's going over on Stream.me, but you can also watch me there too if you are so inclined. I'm seeing Alex Morgan, Michael Stevens. Welcome to the show. We've got a lot to talk about this week, and I always complain about having these 2-hour podcasts, but I'm feeling like this is probably going to be a slightly longer podcast, so we'll see how it goes. But I've got a good, healthy stream here. We're going to jump into some housekeeping right quick. First of all, did I keep the box by? It's on the table behind me. Okay. First bit of housekeeping. I did finally get a video produced on the Whitestone Dome glass screen protector. This is a whole science kit of a screen protector where you have to put like a liquid adhesive under glass and then put it in this jig and balance it all out and make sure everything stays all cool and groovy. And then it's cured with these UV lamps. And if you go to youtube.com/WomBagnell, that video is now out, also detailing the number of times that I failed to properly install this on my LG G7. My V30 has been a ridiculous... Oh, you can actually see it too. Okay, my V30 has been a ridiculous collection of failed screen protectors. I'm on my third one already. I got a really expensive one from Verizon that lasted for about a week. I got one with my Sggqa case, which lasted a little bit longer. Now I'm on my third one. And this one has this really annoying modeling. Like, it looks like an oil slick in the middle of the screen protector, which if you're watching this, you can actually see. And it looks super gross, and that makes me really cranky and sad. So... that's now going to be the experiment, is to see if the Whitestone Dome, which I've already dropped something on, that's awesome. My desk is utterly trashed right now. So the Whitestone Dome got installed. It's super clear. So far, it's been staying really consistent. I stopped using the device for about a day just to kind of make sure everything was seated properly and that the adhesive was settling properly. And now I think I'm ready to take it back out in the field. I need to find a case for it, though, because that screen protector gets kind of rough. And it's tough to fit it when there's gaps and stuff. You want to make sure everything's cool and groovy there. So what else do we have coming up? Oh, yes. I am going to try and hook up an interview with Trisha Hirschberger this week, so that could be kind of fun. We'll see how that goes. Maybe a Friday, like an end-of-the-week Friday Q&A, so be on the lookout for that. If you want to participate live, you want to ask some questions. What I'm wanting to start doing is a little bit more creator chat. I know I was teasing this a while before, months ago, just saying, hey, I want to have these producers on, ask them questions. How did you get started in the business? How did you get to this point where you're super cool and awesome and popular and stuff? And I wasn't really able to do that while still tackling the end of my relationship with Pocket Now. So now that that's finally settled itself, Pocket Now seems to be doing its gig just fine. I'm not hosting that podcast anymore. That's the time for me to transition and start producing some other types of content. And the interview, these long-form discussions, these long-form conversations, that's exactly what I want to be working on to... That's exactly what I want to be working on to produce stuff that I think is going to be interesting. But then also I want to, I want it to be a resource. There is no career track for how you get into this kind of work, or even if you just want to produce some stuff on the side, you know, like if you were interested in doing any kind. Hold on one second, guys. Sorry. So I do see that there are people in the live chat, but unfortunately, it looks like my chat plugin is not working, so I'm having to actually pull up the YouTube chat manually. So I see Junkie, I see Aditya, Bearpaw, Ali. All right, Ronald Collins. Whew. I was worried, man. I didn't see any chatter popping up, and then all of a sudden Periscope just went down too. So I'm gonna have to figure out what's going on with my Restream plugin. Keep all my chat under one roof, but looks like we're back on track now. So Friday, creator chat. I'm thinking it might be around 2 p.m. in the Pacific. I'm gonna have to kind of play it by ear because, like Lex, Trisha has a little Rugrat too, so we're gonna try and time it around her son's nap time. But I think it'll be a really interesting look into a different type of production than what I put together. She is huge for gaming and streaming, and then she's also gotten really good at putting together, say, like branded and sponsorship deals and stuff like that. So if you were curious about this type of work, this type of production, or how people get into it, this is the series that I want to start producing for the SGGQA podcast. Long form conversations, long form interviews, and get into some of the nitty gritty as to how we all got here. And hopefully some of these people can lend some other insights too, just because I think they're really interesting people to talk to. And even if you're not wanting to just jump right in and start producing your own YouTube or podcasting content, at least it would be something that I think would still be interesting. You know, like, I think it's still an entertaining chat. So hopefully that'll be out on Friday. And then this week, I will be wrapping up my time with the BlackBerry Key 2. I'm hoping that my full review video will be finished tomorrow. So that'll be early access while I wait for YouTube to figure out whatever shenanigans it needs to figure out for monetization. So if you're subscribed to the Patreon, you'll hopefully be able to watch that Tuesday night. And then I think if I publish on Tuesday night for Patreon, it should work itself out by Thursday for public consumption. And then after that, hopefully this weekend, I'll be done with the Key 2 camera review. And then next week, like I've been teasing, I'll finally be able to circle back and check out the P20 Pro. So we've got a lot of stuff coming up. It's just timing and timelines got a little wonky. It got a little jumbled up. So I'm getting back on track. And there are a couple other little mini videos that I want to do. Like I'm going to do an LG G6 versus LG G7 comparison. I like doing the conversation about how well a phone has evolved for a 1-year upgrade. So if you got the G6, is the G7 enough of an improvement to jump onto the next generation phone? Or should you be waiting 2 years, or should you be waiting longer? So that's some fun stuff for me to put together too. So I'm not entirely sure when that's going to come out, but those videos I'm going to try and keep really short, like 2 to 3 minutes tops. Bam, design. Bam, performance. Bam, battery life. And then deliver a verdict. And that way we don't have to gild that lily, because I'm already producing about an hour's worth of discussion on some phones between the main review, the camera review, the audio review, and then any other additional. Like for the BlackBerry, I actually did do a live stream setup. You know, that was an hour-long video all on its own. I think some shorter form content would probably do well for everybody there. From Aditya and Nil, wasn't Trisha associated with Philip DeFranco's network a while ago? Her name is very familiar. Yes, she was. I think a lot of people know her probably best from SourceFed Nerd. She blew up there, but even before then, she was already a pretty savvy producer all on her own before she got picked up by that network. She's my co-host on Newegg. She's doing a bunch of stuff with Geek and Sundry. She does the Kingston DIY series. So anytime that you're looking up stuff and you see a Kingston video, you're probably going to see her face on it. So she's just an all-around trooper. She's been doing some kick-ass stuff. So I mean, she's a buddy, she's a pal, but I'm also really excited to have these kinds of conversations with her. We did a chat years ago talking about the Galaxy Note, because we were major Samsung pals. That's how we met. That's a whole long story. I don't want to ruin the podcast, but we were already techie pals before we started working together, which was good times. From Junkie, I would actually love to see an interview tech talk between you and Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Yes, for her, the grind must have been immense over the years. Lisa, I have huge respect for. And also for her managing to continue the types of conversations that she's had without falling into this trap of, well, I need all of my video to look super cinematic, and now my attitude must be I'm over technology and I'm too cool for school. Lisa's awesome. If you're not watching Mobile Tech Review, you're missing out on really savvy commentary from a woman who has been in this gig for a while. Like, she knows her stuff. And that's what I like about her videos, is you get a very informed opinion. And I do not care that it's like I'm getting a little over the current zeitgeist of like, I've got to make every video so visually stimulating that I didn't actually spend any time using the product. I mean, there's a reason why if you're on a feature film set, every day of production will only really deliver about a minute or 2 minutes of screen time. You know, it's because you're spending that long on producing the content. If you're spending that long trying to make your awesome smartphone videos look super clean and cinematic, then you're spending a lot more time shooting the phone than you are using the phone, especially with some of the, like, I couldn't meet the BlackBerry 2 embargo. The embargo was last week, and it would have been about a week and a day for me to use the phone and try and produce a full review, and I just couldn't. And I was a little bit bummed because I missed that big first push, but this is a phone that I think people will be looking at for a while, and I figured I'd rather have a video that properly detailed my experiences using the Key 2, not I need to impress you with the prettiest looking video ever. So I had to take my time on that. From Aditya Anil, perhaps if time permits, and After the Buzz series, kind of along the lines of what you mentioned about the G6. So I'm going to leave, like, I don't want to poach on my previous employer. So long-term reviews, I like doing long-term reviews. I actually really like talking about a phone after about a month. I feel like that's a much better representation of what that phone has to offer, but we're all playing that game of producing a video just outside the window of your first impressions. So I don't want to immediately jump to just ripping off a series from Pocket Now. So they have the ATB. They have the After the Buzz. I don't know what their current slate of production is going to look like or what kinds of videos they're going to be producing in the short term or in the medium term, but that's their gig, and I want to leave them to it. But I think one of the things that I want to tag harder is manufacturer evolution. So not just how well did this one phone age, because I didn't use that phone that whole time. You know, if I do an After the Buzz on the LG G6, most of my experiences are still from the time period when the G6 was new. I don't revisit that phone as often as I revisit my Mate 10. I'm honestly using my Mate 10 a lot more often than I'm using a G6. I mean, funnily, I'm probably even picking up my Mate 9 more often than I'm picking up my G6. Or because, a V30 comes out and I want to spend more time with the V30. That kind of evolution and that kind of process. But what I can take a look at is when we go from year to year, what were the improvements? What were the design ramifications? G6 was already the first phone in the United States to really tackle this 2:1 aspect ratio. So the G7, an early entry into the United States and copying the notch. Like things like that we can talk about from an evolutionary standpoint. It gives us the ability to revisit a phone after a year. And then we can also talk about progress and whether or not we're keeping manufacturers honest about the kinds of improvements and the kind of evolution that we should expect from them. And that to me is probably more likely a better conversation for me. I don't feel like a 1 year retrospective or 6 months is really fair to the phone if I haven't been using it that whole time. And let's be honest, there are too many things coming out that I have the time and the bandwidth to really properly use that device over that time to have an informed opinion. From Nafis Fouad, I have a question. Why do North American tech reviewers hardly talk about any budget phones except Moto? All they talk about are flagship phones. Why? Well, I think we see some areas where you'll find certain producers who really do like to talk about phones in the mid-range and then phones at the entry level. I think one of the things that makes the United States market difficult for that is how easy it is to pick up a phone on some kind of long-term contract or payment plan And American audiences tend to just go for an iPhone or a Galaxy and then tack on an extra $30 a month onto their bill. When you can pick up a zero interest loan and your bill is $20 to $30, or I mean, if you have an iPhone 10, it's like $50 a month, which is ridiculous. Then it becomes a harder argument in the United States to push $100, $200, even up to like a $400 or $500 phone. And I think when you look at how YouTube monetizes these days, when you look at what kind of traffic you can generate, if you just put iPhone in the title of every video, you'll do better than if you put, ZTE or Moto or Honor. There's way less audience for that if a majority of your viewership is in North America. And I think that just kind of goes hand in hand. It's an ugly cycle. You get reinforced by how many people are watching your videos. Oh, well, I did really well with this iPhone video. I didn't do so well with this Honor video, so I should spend more time making iPhone videos. And then I show up better in search. And then Google rewards me for that. And then I make more money. I don't think it's anything outright nefarious. I don't think it's a calculated idea. I'm not going to do this. But behaviorally, it's really easy to reinforce those behaviors over time. I mean, I'm trying to think about who would be a good producer for covering that kind of content. But I'd also say, like, you probably want to stick with producers who do that well. Like Demir Frank. I think Demir Frank does a great job of covering entry-level and mid-ranger phones. And he writes definitely. He writes and produces his videos definitely with a European perspective, but he does his due diligence. He'll spend just as much time reviewing a $200 Huawei as he will, a $600 OnePlus or Oppo, as much time as he'll spend with a Galaxy. So, if you find a producer like that who takes that care, that time, and that attention, that's far more valuable than trying to make an American tech reviewer spend time with a cheap phone, because they're not really going to do a good job of reviewing that phone. They're going to do a better job of reviewing what the phone isn't. Well, this $200 phone isn't as good as this $1,000 phone, so why would you buy it? You don't want that kind of commentary. You actually want someone who's going to review the phone for what it is. And, if you're complaining about American reviewers not really spending the time on that kind of stuff, then, you'll probably want to skip it. Let me see. So, because, I mean, like, it's little things. Search becomes a really big deal. I don't mean to pick on him, but let's pick on him. So here's MKBHD. MKBHD did an LG G7 ThinQ impressions video 2 months ago. It got 1.8 million views. He hasn't revisited it. He hasn't done a full review that I can see. So he does a top 5 smartphone cameras, and he doesn't include the G7. He does one video on the OnePlus 6, so there's the review. He does a Google Pixel 2 revisited with the Android P beta. He does an HTC U12, the Vivo Nex, talk about smartphone chins, Oppo Find X. He does his hot ones, Sennheiser headphones. So his search metrics were way better on the OnePlus 6 review. He got 11 million views there. He did a full review on the U12 Plus, and he got 1.1 million views there. But he only did an impressions on the G7. So even though the G7 did 1.8 million views on an impressions video, he never revisited it to do a full review. So this, to me, really speaks what phones are he going to pay the most attention to, and it's the phones that are going to do the best for search for him, depending on topic and depending on audience. A OnePlus review is going to do huge because OnePlus has a huge fan base. So this reinforces, I did this G7 first impressions, it didn't do so hot, why should I go back and do a full review? Because I'm not going to make as much as I will with any OnePlus 6 video that I do. So it's that kind of stuff that you need to kind of support. I mean, if you want to see more videos on entry-level phones, if you want to see more discussion on entry-level and mid-ranger phones, you need to also help a producer see that there's an audience for it. If the producer can't see that there's an audience for it, then it quickly falls by the wayside because it's way too much work and it's way too much effort to put together a video on something and then have nobody watch it. It's the same things that I get cranky about here. You know, I am partially reinforced by how much time, effort, and energy it takes to put together a video, and then how much money that video might make. You know, I'm only human too. So when I see like my Patreon is paying out just as well as my YouTube, I have 160 subscribers on Patreon, and last month on YouTube, I had 300,000 views, 3,000 new subscribers, over 1 million minutes of watch time, and I made $50 more on YouTube, and it's growing slower than I made on Patreon, and Patreon is growing faster. So if I'm going to continue producing content for a specific audience, there's one audience that's growing really quickly, and there's an audience that's huge but not paying out at all. So that does influence what kind of content I'm looking to produce, how I'm going to produce it, how I'm going to distribute it, and what's my time worth to cater to a specific audience. That's killer. That's pretty tough for me. I need to be mindful of that kind of stuff. So it anymore, especially for a solo producer, it can't just be a passive fan consumption situation. You get to also help drive what content we produce. This is a collaboration. You know, when we see certain content gets shared on Reddit, you know, my videos don't get shared on Reddit. You know, the last video that I think got posted to a Reddit was me posting to my own subreddit. But I have a ton of people complaining about things like my camera reviews going to Patreon. Every one of those people who complains about a video that goes up behind a paywall is also someone who doesn't help contribute to my videos getting shared. So who am I going to make a video for? Someone who's actually actively helping to support production on my channel, or someone who's just complaining that they're not getting something for free and they don't want to put any effort into helping my channel grow? This is a partnership. You know, you get a tiny minority stake in what gets produced here and how I go about talking about it. So that kind of stuff is critical to the conversation. Let's see. Okay. So my plugin finally caught up. So I've got a ton of YouTube conversations coming back in now. Let's see. Oh yeah, there were tons of, and hey, Demir Frank actually made it into the live chat after I was singing his praises. His ears must have been burning that I was being so complimentary about how much I enjoy his content. Good. Oh, and some people are like trying to hammer MKBHD, you know, makes full reviews, or are normal folks watching MKBHD just fans, tech enthusiasts? The thing I don't want to take away from MKBHD is the dude has a ton of hustle. He does what he does very well. And I think he's probably the best overview guy in the biz because he makes all of his videos look super pretty. But I think one of the things that we could appropriately criticize isn't that he's not good at what he does. It's that I don't think he's a good deep dive kind of guy. Like, I'm not going to go to MKBHD for any kind of deep insight into the technology that he's using. I go to him because he's a fun lifestyle guy, you know? I'm going to get a surface overview about what he's doing. I have a very clear idea of what he likes and what he doesn't. Even though he tries to present himself as somewhat unbiased in that regard, I can kind of always feel if a phone is going to be popular in SEO, then he's going to be nice to it. If the phone is not going to net him very much traffic, then he comes in with the hard criticisms and better luck next time and maybe next year. We all know that game, and that game is informed by viewership, by his ratings, by the comments he gets, and when a OnePlus 6 video gets 11 million views and an LG G7 video gets 1.8 million views, that's an order of 10 difference, a factor of 10-fold difference in terms of traffic, then I think we can be pretty clear for future discussions which phone is going to be viewed more kindly and what video is going to be, and what product is going to be criticized more strictly. That's his game. That's his bag, and he's really good at that. But I don't look to him as any kind of authority on the quality of the tech, what the tech can do, how good it is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, but yes, short story, incredibly long. I do want to have Lisa from Mobile Tech Review on the channel because Lisa's awesome. I don't have that same criticism with Lisa because she's putting out 20-minute videos on pretty much everything she gets her hands on, and I take that as legit. Like I take her commentary very seriously. Let's get this out of the way. I don't want to get too stuck into this because we do have some other news and stuff that I want to talk about. We're going to have some fun things to chat about. We don't need to get into YouTube drama here. I know I kind of started it off. That's on me. That's my bad. I apologize. But I do want to get into some news topics. I got to move this window because I've got too many plugins up right now. Let's get that right there. So, one thing I wanted to kick the week off with, and this came as a recommendation. Oh no, I've already lost my Twitter. From Clifton M. Thomas. So I put out a tweet. What do you guys want to talk about this week? Clifton was one of the first to reply, and he was right on the pulse with me because this was one of the stories that I wanted to bring up first. Let me get this queued up here. Dell Technologies is going public again. So if you remember, about 4 years ago, Dell went private. They did this huge buy-up round. They started getting back all their stock, and they became a private company again. They wanted to focus on the quality of their products, how nimble they could be in navigating new technologies. And this is a story from servethehome.com. Dell Technologies is going public again. From the first two paragraphs, Dell Tech announced that it is going public again about 5 years after going private. The transaction will involve exchanging Class 5 tracking stock for VMware with Class C common stock or cash. In the industry, this is big news for a few reasons. The actual exchange of shares is big news for investors. For the company, going public again also means that it will face greater disclosure requirements, handing the tech industry greater insight into what is going on at the enormous technology provider. So I am not super savvy or super smart when it comes to what's going on with the stock markets, but I really liked the idea of Dell going private to be a nimble, aggressive company again. And it was right around that time period that I think we saw Dell refining product lines, coming out with killer laptops, and actually executing on what we thought was going to be interesting about Dell going private. It would seem that after going private, Dell has had issues paying down their debt from picking up all their stock again. So, it's always difficult to gauge. Are they not paying down the debt fast enough? Are they having problems paying down this debt? Is there some other advantage to going public again? And I hope someone who's much smarter than me will maybe leave a comment on this, or maybe even if you're in the live chat, if you're really good at untangling stock news or investment news. It never seems to be a great move to go public. I don't understand a technology company being forced to undergo more scrutiny, have shareholders weigh in on business decisions, and then be beholden to those shareholders for cancer growth. Like, if you can't demonstrate that you can always grow and always turn a profit, then your shareholders freak out on you. That to me seems unsustainable, and it seems to me like that would be a bad position to be in for the short-term gains of picking up other people's cash to help your operations run smoothly for a short period of time. So, I don't know. I'm actually kind of nonplussed by Dell making this move only 5 years after untangling themselves from the publicly traded market either. So, from Jose Julio, they go public because they need the money. That's all it seems like. That's all I could glean from this announcement, especially after reading through their press release. It's just nothing but that terrible corporate jargon and talking about, like, billions of dollars that are being moved around, and it just seems imaginary to me at this point, where you can say that a company's value is based on any kind of performance. It's all just totally specious to me. From BearPaw34. I mean, to me, I've seen a lot of outdated Dells in business offices. Kyle Ruggles, my first PC was a Dell. 1994, the 486DX, 33 megahertz. Oh, that thing was a screamer. Yeah. So, I mean, BearPaw, what they've been doing recently, like the XPS line of laptops are sexy as hell. I really like that. And the buyout with Alienware has resulted in some pretty decent high-end hardware too. I don't think that this move means that Dell is going to be any more nimble or any more aggressive in wrapping up what it is that they're trying to accomplish. I love the Hubsan quadcopter on top the phones on the video. I don't know. I don't know what that means, Arsenal. Sorry. Okay, so moving right along. Chris Moran, we have Dell at my government job. Dell used to be, so I ran, I didn't run it, but I was one of the people in charge of managing the procurement at a DOE facility. And so we had an HP and Apple contract, and I was an Apple product specialist for DOE. The competitor to our account was running the Dell account, and it was the most brutal competition. HP regularly holding seminars, bringing in new servers, new storage arrays, and like they kept losing to Dell. And again, it was mostly based on price, but it was hilarious just how visceral that fight was. And then at the time, I was that nerd in the back of the room going, but what about G5s? Aren't Apple's superior products? And because at the time, I really do think that they were. Those PowerPC, the dual-core, dual-socket PowerPCs were monsters. But I wasn't helping the conversation. All right, moving right along. This story by way of Andrew Wallace. I actually lined up the tweet because this is the company that makes us sad because we love them and they make us sad. From Andrew Wallace, well, SomeGadgetGuy, the final death plunge might well be starting for HTC, laying off a quarter of the workforce they had left after sending 2,000 employees over to Google. Sounds like the beginning, well, middle of the end for them. And Andrew Wallace is always super excited about HTC, especially with HTC going blockchain. Yeah, he's super lit up about potential blockchain phone coming from HTC. But this comes by way of Reuters. Reuters staff. Smartphone maker HTC plans to slash around a quarter of its global workforce through job cuts at its manufacturing unit in Taiwan in a bid to better manage resources as the company continues to battle dwindling sales. The job cuts indicate fresh hiccups for the struggling Taiwanese phone maker that once sold 1 in 10 smartphones globally, but has seen its market share decline amid mounting competition from Apple, Samsung, and Chinese rivals. HTC said it would cut 1,500 jobs in its manufacturing unit in Taiwan. This represents about a quarter of the 6,450 staff it employs globally as of June, data from the company shows. So, this potentially could be pretty bad. I'm not gonna step to the same level of doom and gloom that Andrew is alluding to. Jose Julio, HTC is going down. Kyle Ruggles, bought and liquidate. From Farid, that's how many people they employed to design those U12 Plus buttons. Probably took about 1,000 people to figure out buttons are hard. Versus K, they dig their own grave. Okay. God, so this is totally my bias. Is the fact that I've loved HTC for so long, and I don't want a world in which HTC is not competitive. But it's not like they send me phones anyway. Their PR team doesn't like me. Samsung's PR team doesn't like me. I don't get any reply from them, even though I like to review their products. And I'll point to things like the 1M7, the 1M8 as being revolutionary phones for their time period. It's the reason why I'm not being super negative about this is one of the things that I think could potentially save HTC would be making a hard split, just becoming the phone design side of the company and then partnering with some other outlet like Foxconn to actually get the manufacturing completed. They do not have the infrastructure, they do not have the money, they do not have the resources or the ability to negotiate preferred deals on things like chipsets and displays and RAM and storage. And if they were to utilize the facilities of a manufacturer like a Foxconn, that could make them far more competitive. It is, in my opinion, that is exactly what Google is trying to accomplish by the next Pixel being manufactured by Foxconn. They have the resources, they have the know-how, they have the ability to mass produce these things at a scale that a smaller company like HTC probably can't replicate for the same amount of money. So if it's going to cost more to manufacture each unit, and we could be even talking about pennies of difference per manufacturing line on each unit, but then that adds to the bottom line and it makes the phone more expensive. That influences pricing throughout the entire chain, from manufacturing to shipping to distribution to carrier partnerships, any kinds of deals that are going to befall the consumer. And then the phone actually makes it to the customer and it's going to cost more than a Galaxy. That's going to be a tough call. That's going to be a tough call for the current state of where HTC finds itself. So this could potentially be bad. I'm not going to say that it's not, but this news might not necessarily be the death knell that we're all thinking it might be. So that's tricky. And my chat plugin just went away. Hold on, I can't even see what you guys are saying. Hold on, let me see if I can pull up the Restream chat again. I don't know that this is gonna work, guys. I really want to know what you guys have to say about HTC, because HTC makes me sad. Let's see. Oh, so directly from the YouTube chat, unfortunately, I'm losing the Periscope and the other platforms. iMic Tech, HTC, just make a 1M8 2018, update the specs, maybe make glass back if we want wireless charging, give it an IP rating. The 1M8 may be a good pick. The shell might not be bad if you want that dual camera look, but I would love to get the HTC 10 back. Those big, flat, bezeled edges, the flat metal back. I mean, that phone is just so dead sexy. Yeah, from I can't pronounce your name, XIERH 1988. The HTC 10 would be what I want for an update. Absolutely. I think M8, the design they had for the M8 and the dual camera could do well today, because we're talking about a bunch of phones that are going to have multiple cameras. That's something we're going to be talking about a little later in this podcast. And from Farid, your plugins die faster than HTC. I don't know what's going on with Restream. The Restream chat has been awesome until today. So I'm just back to the YouTube chat, unfortunately. From Aditya, to be honest, if Google amps up their advertising, leaves the hardware designing to HTC, and uses Google software, HTC could still sustain. So that's the tricky thing, is the spirit of HTC can sustain, but the actual HTC logo, I think that's dead, unfortunately. I don't see talent. I don't see an excitement at the company. I don't see them pushing boundaries, and I see them playing the bandwagon game. When you see an HTC U11, U12 come out, and they seem like perfectly solid phones, like they seem like competitive devices, like they're doing fine, but they're not driving the industry in any interesting direction. They've walked away from the more unique features that we used to praise them for, like boom sound and high quality headphone audio, stuff like that. You know, when you give up on stuff like that, which was an actual differentiator for the company, and you haven't replaced it with anything that consumers are going to find meaningful, that's rough. So yeah, I think we're all kind of stuck there. And I don't know what HTC does to crawl out of that pit, because it becomes sort of a downward spiral. Like you keep reinforcing failure, and then you're going to keep failing in future steps. You know, you just prime your team for that. But moving 2,000 engineers over to Google means that HTC spirit, that HTC design language, that HTC manufacturing language, all the stuff that we really love about HTC is going to hopefully go into informing the next Pixel. So that could be awesome. It's sad that we won't have a competitive phone with the HTC logo on the back. And then also, just like, when was the last time you saw a good HTC ad? At least G7 ads are all over the World Cup. Like, it's not the completion of LG becoming a better advertising company and having a better relationship with their customers, but it's a step in the right direction. I cannot tell you what an HTC commercial looks like now. So I don't know. I don't know what happened there. Yeah, from Ruari, high-tech computers. Kyle Ruggles, Ultra Pixels. Ultra Pickles, those are delicious. From Farid. For HTC to make a comeback, all they need is an HTC 10 with updated screen, 5,000 milliamp hour battery, plus everything else you can squeeze in. Oh, is that all? All they need is everything. I love you guys. Oh my god, I love tech geeks. Oh, it's so simple. Just make it perfect. Hold on. I gotta get a drink of water. Hold on. All right, that's enough being sad about HTC. Maybe at some point they'll give me a call and they'll ask what's going on and what they can do to fix things up. But until that happens, we can be pretty sure that they're probably not gonna make it. All right, so I want to try and do something a little fun for this next story here. In my videos, because of how hard I hit Windows Phone back in the day, years ago, I still get a little bit of traffic from people who are fans, and one of the things that they have difficulty handling is the migration over to Android. And Microsoft makes a launcher, but it has nothing to do with Windows Phone or Live Tiles or anything like that. So you end up with these people who are getting bleeding edge devices with killer awesome specs, and it starts to feel like a lateral move because one of the things that was beautiful about Windows Phone was how elegant the UI was, how well it worked. It was this great balance between the customization of Android and the platform stability of iOS. And that's definitely something to be missed. You can have a Qualcomm 835 and awesome cameras and great sound and still feel like that wasn't really much of an upgrade over where we were with a Lumia 930. You know, a 1520 still shoots tremendously competitive video, has awesome microphones, has a great headphone jack, good speaker, you know, and it was an awesome phablet for its day. So, from Steve DeRoche, HTC needs to bring back their Windows phones. You guys are cracking me up. I love this. So there is a launcher, Microsoft launcher, and this pissed me off. Microsoft went out there and said, oh, well, we can't do Live Tiles because there were server things that you needed to do with Live Tiles to make them work right. And that we know that's not true. Like, we know that's false, that there's plenty you can do with Android notifications, building them into icons so that you have updates. Every launcher today seems to have some kind of dot that lets you know on the icon for the app that there's a new notification or a new piece of information for you to take advantage of. So this is by way of mspoweruser.com. Windows Phone-like launcher for Android gets a major update. Now lets the user customize notification live tiles and more. Launcher 10 has received a major update for Android devices today. The latest update bumps the app to version 2.1.5 and brings many new features and bug fixes. For those who don't know, Launcher 10 allows users to enjoy the look and feel of Windows Mobile on Android. Bug fixes, notification live tiles. You can choose the size of the icon for each tile. You can rotate screen and scale tiles to fit. Start screen margin preferences if you want to have that dead space on the side of your home screen like Windows Phone 8 used to have. Live tile calendar events will only be shown if you have the calendar enabled visible in your calendar app. So, I want to try something. I did a video comparing the Mate 10 Pro to the Lumia 1020. I feel out of all of the Android manufacturers today, maybe even including HMD Nokia, that Huawei has become the spiritual successor to what I liked about Nokia hardware. Camera partnerships, great specs, good speakers, etc., etc., etc. There's something just in the DNA of how Huawei is making a modern-day smartphone that feels a little like the more adventurous spirit of classic Nokia to me. While we wait for HMD Nokia to really start pushing the boundaries, because Nokia is killing it with entry-level and mid-ranger hardware, but we haven't seen that amazing balls-to-the-wall flagship phone. So I want to try this. This might crash and burn, so please bear with me. And unfortunately, this won't be the best audio for a podcast. But I'm going to see if we can make this work for the video podcast. If you want to check this segment out and not just hear me talking about it, then of course you can go to youtube.com/Juan Bagnell. Okay, so this is my Huawei Mate 10. And this is Launcher 10 running on the Mate 10. And I just threw a bunch of apps all over the place to see what I could do to customize this layout. But the general vertical column of live tiles is there. My gallery just has a wallpaper up right now, but if I tap on that, it should open up for the collection of phones that I just sent back to Pocket now. That was part of my archive of devices there. Contacts flips open right where you would expect it to be. I don't want to get too into that because I still have a bunch of actors' contacts in my Rolodex. We can move tiles around, same thing, long press, and I can just kind of scooch it up there. So that looks like it's doing well. Then flip to the side, and the vertical column layout, everything's running really smooth. I haven't spent a lot of time on this. I'm doing a lot of this super live here. So let's see if I can just kind of customize a little. I used to do things like, so here's Word, but I also want Drive and OneDrive in there too. So let's hit this. Let's move that over. I can tap that. How do I minimize? So I want height and width to drop down. Let's apply that. That's my dash. I can do the same thing with OneDrive. So it's not quite as smooth as, or as easy to use as, and put that right there. Not quite as easy to use as Windows obviously was. Like we're still kind of, it's still got a little bit of that Android customization feel to it, but it's really refreshing finding that app drawer layout to the side. There aren't the traditional Android home screens. This is running really clean, and this is the first build of this new version that allows you to have like updates and stuff. So I don't need my Play Store to be a full-size widget. Let's shrink that too. So guys, this is actually pretty cool. I think I'm going to spend some time with this to see how I can make that a daily driver. I definitely, and so like even in the spirit of doing this right here, I did reinstall Here Maps. Here Maps is gotten really good, actually. I sent my mom out to the UK with Here Maps as her backup because Google Maps was being annoying in how much map data she could save. And I was like, I know you're on a Galaxy S5, but just go get Here Maps and download all of England. Just get the whole country. Don't worry about shrinking things or only picking one city or anything like that. You can get the whole thing. So, and let's put Netflix up by Google Play. We'll do that too. Guys, this is really cool. I like this a lot. So I think it's like $8 to fully fully unlock everything and also do God, that's really clean. It's $8 to unlock the whole app, to have full notifications in live tiles, and there are ads built into certain panels of the app. So you can try it out for free. Launcher 10, I'll leave a link after this video publishes. But that worked really well for customizing, organizing, and arranging. There's no reason why Microsoft couldn't do that. That makes me crazy sad. We could have Windows 10 devices with Android running underneath, not just the Galaxy Note 8 version from a Microsoft store, which just has Microsoft Word pre-installed. Like, you could do a Surface Note. I want that to sink in. You could have a Galaxy Note 8, pull out that S Pen and make it a mini Surface device. And Launcher 10 would get you a lot of the way to the look and feel of what that's going to be like. So I know I got a few folks in here from iMyTech. I love Windows Phone OS, super smooth. Bearpaw seems more organized. I've gotten away from having multiple home screens on Android. I'm now down to 2, and I might just try and see if I can go down to 1 home screen on my Android devices. I used to be that guy who would have like 7, like here's my music player home screen, and here's my mapping home screen, and here's my calendar home screen. And like, it's not really organized. It doesn't really help you get to things more efficiently or get through your day faster. From Tech Leathercraft, looks a lot like Windows Phone GUI. I mean, on the surface, as soon as you dig out of that, the multitasking is the same as Android. It's not the card layout that you see from Windows Phone. You can't really change that. Notification shade is still the same. So even on my Mate 10, the notification shade is the Mate notification shade, which some people hate. But on the whole, That was a really smooth, responsive launcher for just the main UI on your home screens. That was really impressive. From Kyle. Oh, I just missed. Where is? Okay. Oh, from Kyle Ruggles, not bad. I should load it up on my tablet. Deborah Dukes, I wish Google would start adding some more functions. I think Google is packing in a lot of functionality on new stuff. It's just, I'm not sure they're really solving problems as much as they are just changing the way things used to be done for the sake of changing things. From BearPaw34, but if you misplace an app, well, you kind of can't, you know, if, here, I can actually show you. Let me go back in. And here is that. Oh, I need to turn the screen back on. So, like, let's say I accidentally, or I purposely, I unpin Firefox. So, oh no, where did my Firefox go? Well, you just flip over to the side and you go Firefox, and there's your Firefox. And if you want to repin it to your, oh, I can also go, oops, I don't want dash. You go to F, you long press on Firefox, pin to start, drops it right back down, and it's right back where you wanted it. So this kind of stuff, like, that does exactly what I want it to do. That is like Windows Phone. You can't really lose things. You can uninstall them, but that's on you. You have to go through the system settings and uninstall the app and get rid of it that way. That's a lot more. Let's see. From iMike Tech, can Windows Phone access Google Play Store? It cannot. From Renato Laporte, one, just need to change the navigation buttons with the XDA gesture pill. Modern Windows Phone. That could be kind of fun. Actually, I wonder, because I'm trying to hold off on other gesture implementations until Android P is officially out and about. And I wonder what that would feel like. Android P style navigation with Microsoft style live tiles could be really clean. Let's see. Kyle Ruggles, Here Maps. I forgot about that. And Farid, Here Maps is awesome for traveling abroad. I'm still going to use Waze and Google Maps around town. That's more, I know where I'm going, but I want the best traffic data to find the best route to get me to the place I already know how to get to. When you're traveling overseas, you're not sure what your data is going to look like. You're not sure what kind of restrictions or if you can get a SIM card, blah, 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 blah. Here Maps is awesome. Just download the whole country and don't worry about it. It's phenomenal. And some other people from Shakti, my Lumia 930 camera still destroys my XZ2 camera. Yeah, I would believe it. God, the 930 was such a baller phone. It makes me sad that we lost the plot on that. It took so long to go from the 930 to the 950. It took like over 2 years. And then when we got the 950, it was Microsoft and it was plasticky garbage. So anyway, Launcher 10, that looked cool. I'm really excited about that. I think I am going to switch over maybe my G7. Maybe I'll make my LG G7 my Windows phone and show it off that way. I think it's going to have to start showing up in videos as a Windows device. Oh, that's going to be fun. Okay. Anyway, we got another news story here. This one's going to be a little bit shorter. I just like, pimping these kinds of apps out there. This is direct from Google, and Google launches an AR measuring app. You want to measure how Apple and Google are doing in the AR race? Well, you could look to both companies' actual measuring apps, both called Measure. This is from VentureBeat. It's not really a huge story, but it's, are we seeing progress on augmented reality, on AR Core and AR Kit? And having first-party solutions to do really basic things helps consumers get used to the idea of what augmented reality can be. So I've already fired up AR Measure. I've already fired up Measure with my LG V30, and it works okay. The sensitivity of what surfaces it can detect makes it a little tricky. So like behind me right now, you can see all my bookcases. The app did not like trying to find that as a surface. But I would throw the camera looking down at my table, and it detected the table surface really well, and it was pretty accurate for determining the measurement. So something like you're wanting to measure for a couch and a coffee table, this is looking like it could be a great fit for that. If you're trying to do anything with precision, nah, forget about it. But general like appliances and furniture and things like that, that seems like it's going to be a fine fit. So you could check it out. It's already available if your phone is compatible with AR Core. You can download it. It's called Measure, and I'll throw a link in the show notes on this one too, so you guys can catch that. But definitely fun to play with, and hopefully another step in the right direction. There are some really fun AR experiences for iOS, and I'm hoping we'll start to see more of that come in Google's way. I can't remember the name of it. There's an Apple AR racing game. And by racing game, I mean you running on foot. And so you hold up your phone, you look like an idiot, but it's fun. So why not? It's, just as dumb looking as like when you're out Pokemon hunting. You hold up your phone and it draws a track in real life in front of you, and then it times you to see how fast you can run that track, uploads your time to a server where you can compare your scores against other people, and it is way more fun than it has any right to be for making people run in strange shapes. So that, I think, is an amazing example of taking a VR game idea out into the real world, and I want to see more stuff like that. From BearPaw34, Google measurements are different in other countries. Will it convert? It can do imperial and it can do metric. BearPaw, it's okay. I feel like that's not something to be too concerned about. But for Ferrari, who measures everything in furlongs, I feel like you would need the tablet version of the app to measure furlongs, not the phone, because your screen's just not big enough. You need the larger screen. So if I run the app off of my big screen TV here in the office, then I can use it to measure furlongs. So there you go. One last little bit of app news. Again, not something that we have to spend a whole lot of time with, but again, let's celebrate companies when they realize that they've made mistakes and they're trying to fix those mistakes, and we're going to see progress. And that's Apple. So this is coming by way of TechCrunch. Apple is rebuilding Maps from the ground up. So this is from the article Matthew Panzarino. I'm not sure if you're aware, but the launch of Apple Maps went poorly. After a rough first impression, an apology from the CEO, several years of patching holes with data partnerships, and some glimmers of light with long-awaited transit directions and improvements in business, parking, and place data, Apple Maps is still not where it needs to be considered a world-class service. Maps needs fixing. And so Apple is apparently going to gut the whole app. They're looking at controlling more of the information in the infrastructure of the app, and then they're going to be publishing a completely new service to better compete against Google. Let's see. Q says, we decided to do this just over 4 years ago. We said, where do we want to take Maps? What are the things that we want to do in Maps? And we realized that given what we wanted to do and where we wanted to take it, we needed to do this ourselves. And it's about controlling all of the mapping data. One of the things that's going to be killer trying to compete against, Google and Google Maps is literally putting cars on the ground, collecting as much information as you can, and you can't rely on other companies to fulfill all of the data that goes into your mapping infrastructure. So I thought Apple Maps was pretty, but you never really did get to the same quality of experience that Google Maps offered near the launch of Apple Maps. And I think a lot of people would have been saying, yeah, there are those stories about Apple Maps driving people into lakes and stuff. From Nat, Apple? Mistake? Say it ain't so. Apple never makes mistakes. And from iMike Tech, Apple Maps has gotten me lost so many times. From Farid, sounds like a wasteful effort from Apple on this. I disagree, Farid. I actually think that this could be a good move. Again, you want to control the experience. You want to say that the iPhone has something unique to offer, and you don't want to be overly reliant on other competing manufacturers and competing developers to provide services for your platform. I think there is some idea that Apple should be able to own the out-of-the-box, top-to-bottom experience without having to rely on other companies to fill in all of the gaps of what we expect from a modern day smartphone. That being said, I know pretty much almost everyone in my social circles, as soon as they fire up their iPhone, they install apps like Google Maps because Apple Maps was insufficient. Or just you're used to Google Maps. But one of the reasons why I don't think that this is a wasted effort now, and one of the reasons why I think it's a good move in this moment, is I don't think Google has been more vulnerable in a variety of their platforms than they are right now. They're talking about rebranding ads. So Google Ads and Google AdSense, and that doesn't change the service, but they realize that their search business doesn't have the same cachet today that it had 10 years ago. So they're making a change there. Google Maps has been going through a ton of feature evolution and feature creep, where my experience with Google Maps hasn't been as seamless today as it was a couple years ago. And there are things that are nicer about Google Maps today, but then getting to some core functionality has actually been more difficult. So there's an opening there where Apple could come in with something from an Apple perspective, making it super simple, super streamlined, making it faster, making it leaner, but then actually executing on the mapping experience more directly and better than what Google is currently delivering with feature creep version of Google Maps. And then since they've been so into ARKit, they are actually behind Google in this regard, but they could be doing some really exciting things, rebuilding the map application to take advantage of ARKit to provide augmented reality directions to consumers in a way that they might be able to catch Google by surprise. Excuse me. So all of those pieces lining up together, now would be the right time for Apple to reinvest in their ecosystem like that. I think they could do something potentially disruptive there. I'm not saying they will, but there's the potential. And that's what's exciting about tech conversations is, are we really realizing those potentials? I don't know that they will. I don't think they will, but it's exciting to think that they could. So that's where I'm kind of okay. From Farid, yeah, we're going to have ads through AR navigation from Google for sure. Yeah, probably. You like going to dim sum? Well, here's a restaurant right near you. Would you like to change your navigation to go to this dim sum restaurant? No, I just want to go to work. Kyle Ruggles, fragmentation. Google is everywhere. What are they? Do they exist? Is it like God? We don't see what he or she or it does, but it's out there. Again, competition is the only thing that keeps mega corporations like that in check. Some conversation about Siri. Bearpaw, I think Apple may be a little late with maps. Again, I don't know that it's an early or late kind of situation. It's are you following or are you leading? I think at any point you can disrupt a market if you can take it somewhere new that resonates with consumers. I don't believe that there's any too late. I think it's just, do you really know what you're trying to accomplish? Do you really have a good bead on the market that you're trying to reach? And can you iterate, upgrade, improve, and adapt so that you can convince consumers that you are the fit, that you are the solution that they want to go with? And that to me is a huge get when you're fighting Google Maps. Like, that's not going to be an easy fight, but I believe someone could come in and wage that battle. Again, my mom and dad just spent almost 2 weeks in the UK. Last week's podcast, I talked a little bit about how many problems they had getting AT&T to give them international data and how expensive it was. And they didn't want to have to use data on maps, right? So my mom was going through the process on her old Galaxy S5 of downloading individual cities in the UK, because maybe they were going to take a day and go up to Scotland. Maybe they were going to try and hop over to Ireland. They didn't know exactly where they wanted to go. They didn't want to have to rely on Wi-Fi when they got there. So she's trying to do that stupid thing in Google Maps where you draw a square around where you want to go. Oh, that square's too big. You can't download all of that map. That's ridiculous. You should be able to draw a square around the entire UK area, like all of the islands. Just get that whole thing. And so I had her install Here Maps, And 2 button pushes later, and it was a sizable amount of information on her poor little old Galaxy S5, but she had the whole thing. And that's what she used. She used that offline so that she wasn't, sucking down any data that she didn't need to. That's a solution. That's something that could move the needle on competition. I'm not saying that that's what Apple needs to do, because Here Maps is already a solution. So if they just copy Here Maps, that's not going to fix anything for them. But there are other things that Apple could be looking at to shake up the way that we interact with data. Google is going for feature creep. How can we make maps as complete but as complicated as possible? That's not necessarily the right play. It's going to appeal to some of us who we want that ton of functionality. A lot of people are going to be put off by the multiple layers of navigation to get through your favorite places. It takes me about 4 or 5 menu and button presses to get to the list of locations that I travel to regularly. That's not good design. That's really cluttered design. I believe Apple has the developer talent to do that better. Kyle Ruggles, you could download multiple maps. But why? Why should I have to download multiple maps, especially multiple maps that are going to overlap? That's terrible design. That's kind of the worst. And I think you should be ashamed for suggesting it. I'm just messing with you, bud. From Rick Bearcat, Here Maps is really the best option out there. It works seamlessly on Windows devices. It works great on Android devices, too. Let's move on. Okay, Apple. I knew this one was going to be a little twitchy, that people wanted to jump on the hating Apple bandwagon, and 95% of the time I'm with you. But again, I want to give them kudos when I see that they might do something that I like. I want to give them the potential to succeed before I trash them. Likely, when this new version of Maps comes out, I'm probably just going to end up trashing them. Here, let's move on to this next story. This one got a lot of buzz for a hot minute. From Ruari, boo, Apple, boo. This is from a digital photography review, dpreview.com. SD Express SDUC memory cards will give you 985 megabyte per second transfer speeds and up to 128 terabytes of storage. Ooh, ooh. Big memory cards coming our way, folks. So, a lot of people going crazy just on the memory card specs. Like, I don't think we've even realized the full potential of storage for our current generation of memory cards. Like, supposedly you can go up to like 2 terabytes of storage, and I don't think we've gotten close to that yet. Or, well, I mean, I think we've gone up to something ridiculous. Like, haven't we gone up to like 900 gig? We haven't really quite broken a terabyte. Someone please let me know. The exciting thing is going to be this bus speed. So when devices, especially mobile devices, start coming out that support this type of transfer speed, again, not even fully realizing almost gigabyte per second transfer speeds, 985 megabyte per second transfer speeds, then we start getting close to mobile devices that support nearly PCIe speeded connections. That means we could get really close to implementing things like Thunderbolt directly into our phones. I feel if we can get up to that Thunderbolt style connection into a mobile device, that absolutely wrecks a big chunk of what's left of the tablet market. It's way less necessary to be making modular foldable phones. Like, why do I care if my screen can fold out and do a whole bunch of flippy stuff if I can plug my phone into any type of screen, any type of form factor, a tablet shell, a laptop shell, just an external monitor, anything at all. If I can do that, then my phone is immensely more powerful than a standalone device that folds up or is a standalone tablet or something like that. And then it would also allow me to connect to desktop grade components. So my phone will be the brain, but then I could plug it into like a mini PC form factor, which has a Core i7 or a Core i9 and or maybe even like an AMD, like a Ryzen chipset with a proper desktop grade GPU and a bank of hard drives for storage. I could just pop it in there, and then my workflow continues seamlessly from the phone directly into a dual monitor setup. That is what's epic. Could we really improve the data infrastructure where so many devices are coming out with just like USB 2? So, I did that demo doing the Windows, launcher on a Mate 10. I was gonna do that on my OnePlus 6 because I thought it would be kind of fun to do live tiles on a OnePlus 6. I can't because it's just a USB 2 implementation of USB-C, not the full USB 3.1 with support for HDMI output. So I can't connect my display to a OnePlus 6. I can't push the OnePlus 6 into that kind of usage. Whereas on my Mate 10 Pro, actually, let me show you guys. I think I can actually pull it up. Hold on. Give me 1 second. I'm going to switch from, let me do this on camera. So here, I'm going to go back into this and crop that back down. I'm off. There we go. Okay, so this is just sharing the screen. We're back on my little Windows launcher here. But if I slide this down and I touch to switch to the Pro desktop mode, let's see if it'll do it. It might freak out on me. Bam! Well, look at that. Oh, isn't that sexy? So without any dock, this is a $20 cable. I bought a $20 cable that now connects to HDMI, and now I can use my phone as a mouse. So let me come down here. Oops, missed it. There's a delay between my Elgato. And let's go to third-party apps. I know this is terrible audio podcasting here. Oops. And Power Director. This is ridiculous. There isn't a lag on the actual screen. It's a lag going through my... it's a lag going through this interface with my Elgato. It's hilarious. And so here I've got it. Oh, this is going to be a hard target to aim for. Go up a little further. Nope, go down. Ah, and hit allow. So here's Power Director running on a Mate 10 Pro in a desktop mode through the benefit of a $20 cable. If I want, now with a proper desktop grade setup, I can edit and render 4K video built off of a phone. All I'd need to do is like get a Bluetooth mouse and keyboard and I'm living it up. Like, this is huge. Now, if I could also get the transfer speeds, the connectivity speeds of a true PCIe interface, this would be epic. All right, let me get out of this here and go back to my normal setup. Oops. Turn off that crop. There we go. So, unreal, folks. Like, every time I see someone like, oh yeah, foldable phones, I don't care. Foldable phones are not really the thing for me. We've got Windows 10 running on ARM chipsets. We now have an interface which supports almost gigabyte, not gigabit, gigabyte per second media transfers and data throughput. We could be pushing the phone so much further, so much farther. There's no reason, there would be no reason to walk around like with a standalone laptop. You would just have the one operating system that follows you from different displays, from display to display to display. Your phone powers your desktop. Your phone powers your laptop. Your phone powers a tablet. Or you could even shrink it and go smaller. Like, phone pops up in a window that's at eye level in your car, just feeding you AR information about your drive. I mean, that kind of stuff is exactly where I want to see this go. Just make the phone the brain, and then the experience blows up or shrinks to the display that I want to send it to. If I want to send it to an 80-inch TV or if I want to send it to a 4-inch phone screen, just change that that user interface, but don't make me interact with 6 different operating systems over the course of the day. And that is gonna be epic. Connect it to a GTX, 1180 Ti FTW, something like that. Have it powering mega awesome games directly through my Steam library. Hook all that stuff up together. Oh, this could be so clean. Could be so epic. From Aditya Anil. Whoa, okay, Huawei just became more tempting as an upgrade. I mean, like, definitely want to give props to Huawei. That desktop mode works super, super well, and that it's not built on something proprietary. Like, I think Dex is really cool. You get a note, you pop it on your Dex, what do you call that? Dock, your Dex dock, and you've got something similar. It's a desktop grade experience. It's powered by Android. But Huawei did it without proprietary hardware. Huawei did it with any type of cheap-ass cable that you want to plug an HDMI connector into, and the phone just recognizes, oh, you're doing video out. Do you want a screen mirror, or do you want to do some real work? And bam, there you go. Flipping awesome. So from Fat Produce, does the Mate 10 Pro heat up noticeably when you're in desktop mode? Yes, it does. But mostly because of having the screen on, and then I also have an HDMI connector that allows me to charge, and you're still running another interface and apps on top of that. So the phone is working pretty hard. That is definitely a concern if you're worried about your gadgets running hot, but it does it, and it works well, and it does it really well. Just my demo looking a little janky because I'm going through the lag of going through an Elgato. But that notwithstanding, when you're connected directly to a display, it works really, really well. From Kyle Ruggles, game streaming in the future, ever since I used it on my Shield 4 years ago. Come on, even for VR with our bandwidth lately and with Li-Fi, come on. Definitely. From Tech Leathercraft, the next Dex dock needs to be a laptop form. When we saw Razer do that, you know who I'm really disappointed hasn't done this is Motorola. Motorola, if you are listening, please bring back the lap dock. I don't know if you guys remember this. It was around the Atrix, a series of droids where your Motorola phone would have a USB and an HDMI port side by side. And then you would plug that into a laptop clamshell form factor, which would then switch the interface on the laptop screen into something more like a desktop. Our phones were way too underpowered to pull that off well, and the lap dock was an expensive piece of proprietary hardware that would only work with Motorola devices and didn't even work that well for that current generation of Android. Just wasn't ready for prime time. But what do we have today? August 2nd, we're supposed to be getting an announcement from Lenovo about a Moto Z3. And what does the Moto Z3 have but a magnetic interface with a whole collection of high data rate transferring pogo pins that you can use to make modular accessories? So why not do what Razer did, make the phone the touchpad in the keyboard of the dock, snap it in with magnets, have a huge battery that can charge the phone and power the display, and then convert that into a desktop grade interface. You have your mobile laptop grade solution. And it's perfectly compatible with, I mean, it might be a stretch for the first Moto Z. I think that was a Qualcomm 820. Maybe that's a stretch. But last year, a Qualcomm 835, no problems. No problems at all powering that. And then take it up to an 845, and it's just running like butter. I am shocked, and I am super disappointed that Motorola has not created that, because that was a product that was baked into their DNA, and it sounds like the perfect fit for a Lenovo product too. Lenovo's all about making flexible, modular, magnetic accessories for ThinkPads. Those accessories are really flipping cool, where you can get the stack of these bricks, and like one's a hard drive, and one's like a really high-powered router, and another one's like a memory card reader, and they just go snap, 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 snap. Awesome. That seems like it would be such a perfect fit. Make your phone into a ThinkPad. It could be the ThinkPad phone. Oh, I want this so bad. Okay, so anyway. From Krishna Pandya, I think Asus with their new gamer-centric phone could be well placed for a lap dock. Definitely, because that's another thing. You know, you make a desktop dock, and then you could make a lap dock, and Razer is going to follow suit. Gaming on mobile is going to be taken way more seriously over the next couple of years because you have companies like Razer and Asus stepping into that market. An ROG phone is going to be a big deal for mobile gaming. We're already doing well. Like OnePlus 6 for gaming is awesome. It's a snappy, it's a savagely fast phone. But when you've got a proper infrastructure that's almost Nintendo grade for accessories, it's going to take mobile gaming up to a whole new level. An Ubuntu phone. Yeah, Ubuntu was trying to do the same thing. A couple people talking about that, Kyle Ruggles and Renato. That was kind of disappointing that we didn't see that take off. You would have this Linux device that would have a mobile interface when you were just using it as a phone. What did I run it off of? I think I set it up on a Galaxy Nexus. I mean, you know, again, not the best platform for supporting that kind of stuff, but I did flash Ubuntu on a Galaxy Nexus, but I couldn't get the desktop to work. But anyway, the whole idea was going to be the same thing of what I just demonstrated with the Huawei nearly seamlessly, but it was Linux. It was going to be a full build of Linux. It was sort of a streamlined interface for when you were using it as a phone, plug it into any kind of monitor, and it was supposed to turn over into a proper desktop grade Ubuntu experience. Like, that could have been awesome. It could have been epic. So I got a couple stories here that I want to wrap up. I think it's always worth checking in on the state of AI, especially because we've been talking about gaming. So this is courtesy of CNET, and this is now AI is beating us at our favorite video games. Bill Gates tweeted a huge milestone in advancing AI. The actual tweet, the actual quote, AI bots just beat humans at the video game Dota 2. And that's a big deal because their victory required teamwork and collaboration, a huge milestone in advancing artificial intelligence. So, I, for one, welcome our new robot overlords. On that note, I'm going to take a quick drink of water here. From Farid, AI like ThinQ. No. From Kyle Ruggles, we did. This one's actually a pretty big deal. Again, I was actually kind of surprised that this story didn't make more news. This was published June 27th, and it made the rounds on Twitter for a hot minute, and then I kind of saw it disappear. But this is another order of magnitude more impressive in terms of artificial intelligence research. So, not a huge deal when you've got chess programs that can beat most human players. The algorithms involved with chess are finite. So your ability to predict outcome is kind of limited just by your ability to buffer future moves. It became a much bigger deal when we saw AlphaGo. There's an amazing documentary on Google's AI project for programming AlphaGo. And I would highly recommend watching it because you put this computer up against a human player, and everyone is expecting the human player to just wipe the floor with this computer. And spoiler, the opposite happens. There's more to the documentary than that. I mean, I kind of spoiled that. I apologize. Now with Dota, we're talking about team competition, and we're looking at a 5-on-5 tournament where they're going to pit this AI, 5 instances of this AI, which all collaborate up against a human 5-player team. And that's going to be nuts. So it's already wiping the floor with amateur players. So this is coming from the developer behind this is OpenAI. OpenAI, a nonprofit AI research company co-founded by Elon Musk. And the quote from... Hold on. Let me see. This is just from the company's press release. So this is the company's quote. I thought this was coming from Elon Musk himself. But OpenAI 5 plays 180 years worth of games against itself every day, learning via self-play. Our team is focused on making our August goal, said Jack Clark, a spokesman for OpenAI, in an email statement. We don't know if it will be achievable, but we believe that with hard work and some luck, we have a real shot. I want that to sink in. This is how screwed humans are. OpenAI 5, a 5-player AI collection, which can play a team game like Dota 2, plays 180 years worth of games against itself every day to learn how to play better. From Kyle Ruggles. We dead. And from John Saniza, we will see it. So this is what they're talking about of making their deadlines in August. Is this is they're gonna try and enter some championships, some tournament play. I really want to see what this thing can do against the top of the line human players, and what choices AI makes. Because what's also very interesting is when an AI makes what it seems like is a mistake, the analysis of what goes into why did it make that decision, where did it go askew, where did it go astray. I mean, that kind of stuff is pretty epic too, but that's enormous. This is where humans will fundamentally fall apart when it comes to this type of competitive, especially mental competitive resources. How do you compete against a learning machine which can radically accelerate time? The only reason, like, we play video games at the rate and with the time that we do is based on our own biological limitations. If you could get rid of fatigue, and if you could speed up internal processing and reaction times, then we'd have a fighting shot. But how do you beat something? I mean, like, maybe we win this year, but if we win this year, we're not going to win next year. We're screwed. We are screwed. Kyle Ruggles, when are we going to see drones without human interaction like the crappy movie Stealth? I mean, I kind of have to believe that stuff already exists. And especially from when we've seen from the public side of it, Google employees saying that they don't want to take on any more defense contracts, things like that. I wholly have to believe that what we see in Stealth is probably already last generation tech. From FE1538C, man, I cannot overcome the calculator. From Bearpaw, game over, humans, game over. From Aditya Anil, it took me 3 full attempts to be able to evenly level up my 6-member Pokemon team without preferring my starter. And again, it's just like, how unsatisfying would it be to fight AI in Pokemon? Like, well, I've been playing Pokemon for 3,000 years. You've been playing for 6 months. I wonder how this is going to go for him. Oh, man. What I hope we'll find is some sort of synergy where AI becomes like a good co-pilot for us meatbags, but increasingly I have to believe that AI is just going to be the next step of life on this planet, and we'll probably at some point outlive our usefulness. So one last bit of AI news. This is coming from Renato Laporte. I put out the tweet this morning, and he sent me this article, which looks kind of interesting. I have to do the translation on it. So the dream of Watson coming to phones might be closer than we thought. I very much want to get rid of the current app interface that we use, Touch Square Get App, and I'd love to have a smart assistant that actually did all of the smart things that a real assistant can do. So Tela 2 integrates Watson Assistant into a new My Tela 2 app. So apologies, this is kind of a rough translation. This is from a German publication, tweakers.net. Provider Tela 2 integrates Watson Assistant. The app learns as users ask more questions. This is why there are currently questions that the AI assistant cannot answer. Questions can be asked in Dutch and can be done via chat messages. So far, Tela 2 has held a beta test among a limited group of users. So this is IBM doing something today that I've been asking them to do since Watson first wiped the floor with Jeopardy contestants, is finding some outlet or finding some resource for making Watson a consumer-facing service. Start gathering that information, start gathering that data. They've been positioning Watson as some sort of corporate infrastructure or medical device or something to help, high concept and high thought applications. But I think the real true test of any type of infrastructure is, can you get down to the ground level with end users and deliver a compelling service? And so what was it? I think it was in March where IFTTT announced that there would be plugins for developers to take advantage of, where you could do if this then that with Watson in some part of the chain. And I need to go back and revisit, see what people have done, because I started poking around, and then this was all developer stuff that was over my head. So unfortunately, I didn't dig too deep into this. But again, when we can have end user plugins that utilize Watson as a resource, that could be epic for improving the quality of services that we currently interact with. And I would turn to a Watson to accomplish some of these like macro style interfaces. Like, it's something that Bixby does pretty well, actually. I don't like Bixby, but it's something that I think they've got a good platform that they could build off of, where with one command, you can get Bixby to do a macro of different things, hey Bixby, movie mode, and it dims the lights, it pulls up the TV, it opens up your movie streaming service or app or Netflix or something like that. You could say like, hey Bixby, Netflix and chill. And then it turns on Netflix and it drops the lighting in your living room, plays some soft jazz until you pick your movie. Like stuff like that could be really exciting and really interesting. IBM getting back into the space, that could be really compelling. I want more competition, and I want, smart assistants and stuff. That's going to move the needle for me on this stuff really taking off. Right now, Siri, Google Assistant, Cortana, they haven't pushed in, or Alexa, they haven't pushed into that territory where I feel like they're really consistently doing things faster and better than what we can do if we just do it manually. But you shake it up a little bit more, you get IBM in there, you get a couple other major players with huge data backing up natural language interactions, and that could be a huge get. That could be a good push for moving the needle on these new services. From BearPaw34, Kyle Ruggles and BearPaw talking about the 3 laws of robotics. Don't forget about Law 0, guys. That's where we need to be worried. Law 0 is where we're going to get wrecked. Law 0. That's the scary. So anyway, from Kyle Ruggles, I was so pissed when Samsung acquired Viv. EMP. So again, if any company's out there making consumer grade EMPs, like your little police tasers and stuff like that, we should all have our own safety equipment. A couple quick little things here. This story came by way of me. I got cranky about this and I shared it on Twitter. We live in the post-net neutrality world. AT&T is sneakily raising almost $1 billion a year by more than doubling an admin fee, which is buried on wireless customer bills. And without any kind of regulatory agency that can look after this stuff, that they've given up this type of regulation to major corporations that influence our politicians, we're going to be seeing more things like this lobster pot. If you're a major ISP or a major cell phone carrier, how can you improve your bottom line? Do you work really hard to improve infrastructure and work to break into markets where you were previously barred from competing against similarly sized ISPs? And do you improve your service and really convince customers through the merit of your products and offerings in a true capitalistic sense of competition and fair play? Well, that requires effort and money and infrastructure and work, when all you need to do is double some bogus fee buried in the middle of some bill, which goes to some specious network improvements, which never really materialize. You just get to pocket all of that extra fee money. And that's what they're doing. So there's some BS little fee. I think it was like 70 cents a month, and now it's going to be almost $2 or something ridiculous like that. I could click on the article from fortune.com. I'll link the article so you guys can read up on it. But this is where we're going to start. we're not going to start by instantly breaking the internet and making everything pay tiers and throttling all of your data and all of your connections. The lobster pot on this is going to be, how can we extract more money for zero effort from consumer bases? So it doesn't feel like a whole lot. You're only going to pay an extra like $1.50 a month on your bill, but that's where it starts. And then once you get used to that extra little dollar admin fee, well, maybe that needs to become a $5 admin fee. And now we'll get an extra $3 billion. And then the nefarious thing happens is when you try to get rid of those fees, AT&T starts talking about how you're damaging their business. You're forcing them to cut their funding. Their shareholders start reacting that they're making less money. Well, this was gravy. This wasn't actual profits, because if you changed the actual bill, then that would allow consumers to alter the contracts and the agreements that they have in place. So you don't change the bill, you just tack on a different fee. Fees can be tacked on without reevaluating the contract and the legal agreement that you have with your ISP. So that's where they're going to keep building this BS in. And then from there, they'll start doing more preferred data. They'll start throttling your services. They'll start breaking certain connections. That'll happen eventually, just like it did during the heyday of the fights between Netflix and Comcast, Netflix and Verizon. That's all coming back. That's a foregone conclusion. There's too much money at stake to let Netflix just do business in a free and fair, open, competitive market. So this is a major bummer. If you're upset about stuff like that, I hope you will lead these kinds of conversations, not only with your family and friends, but continue putting pressure on elected officials. Here in California, we got hosed on our net neutrality bill at the state level. I'm looking up now to see where New York is with their legislation. I hope it doesn't get wrecked too. But I'm going to be actively campaigning against the Democrat assemblyman who shoehorned in a bunch of changes to our net neutrality bill here in California to make it more palatable to ISPs and cell phone carriers. I want him out of office. I don't care that he's a Democrat. He betrayed us. It's time to take this crap back. So that's where we're going to go. And then also start reporting this stuff, even though the regulatory agencies that would be responsible for monitoring this kind of business practice won't do anything about it. At least having a consumer paper trail will hopefully allow a future administration to follow up on these complaints, to follow up on these business practices, and to reignite the discussion on consumer protections and fair business practices. But it's not going to happen today. It's not going to happen with the GOP in charge. It's not going to happen with Supreme Courts the way that they're looking, and it's not going to happen with the FCC being completely owned by the very corporate entities that it's supposed to be regulating. That's what we got to do. From Kyle Ruggles, take no crap no matter which party. It's country before party. Net neutrality is better for the country. Any Democrat that steps out of line in net neutrality, I will be campaigning against as aggressively as I can. That's the game. That's what it's got to be. It's not conservative or liberal. 80% of self-identifying conservatives agree with net neutrality. 90% of self-identifying liberals identify with net neutrality. We agree on this. We disagree on where some of the limits should be, but we agree on having a fair and open internet for people to do business on, and this is going to be the future of rebuilding the American dream. We can't have mega corporations in our way. That's how we do. Country before party. So anyway. One last, this is just a question that I got from Aditya Anil, who's might still be in the live chat. I mean, he's a really cool dude. So this was the tweet I put out just asking for what topics we wanted to talk about. He mentioned HTC laying off staff. And the other question that he brought up was there are supposedly going to be 5 cameras on the LG V40, according to leaks, while Google only has one rear-facing shooter on their 2018 flagship. Is software prowess enough to beat the competition? And I'm actually really excited because I've got Kyle Ruggles in the live chat too. Kyle Ruggles is a phenomenal photographer. He's my brother from another mother up in Canada, and I really like his work. And he's also been a great a great add-on conversation for a lot of my camera reviews. Like if you look at one of my camera videos and then you see a Kyle Ruggles comment, you know it's going to be like 7 pages long and critiquing some of my technique in what I was trying to accomplish in talking about camera quality. So 5 cameras on the V40. So let's break this down rationally. It's not that we're going to see, I don't believe that it's going to be that we're going to see 5 cameras on the back of the phone. What I would imagine we will see is a dual camera setup for the main shooter with an ultra wide sensor for a 3 camera rear setup. Then I hope we get back to separate cameras for the selfie shooter. The G7 selfie shooter is not humongously, but is noticeably improved over the V30. The V30 was kind of a weak spot. It got better with some software. So when the V30 got the Oreo update, the selfie shooter on the V30 got a little bit better. It got a little bit more usable. But trying to do a narrow field of view and an ultra wide field of view, I think was too big a compromise to cram both of that into one camera sensor. So I would like to go back to the dual camera sensors that we had on the V10. And did the V20 also have dual? I can't remember. But anyway, you had an ultra-wide camera sensor and a standard camera sensor on the V10 for the front-facing shooter. You want a super wide group selfie, you can do that. If you want more narrow, sort of a portrait look, you can do that too. And that's where I'm hoping we'll see 5 camera sensors on a V40. If we're going to make the V series the true true content creation platform that it deserves to be, that's what I'm hoping we're going to accomplish. I'll be curious to see, like, if we go triple on the back, what I'd love is a larger camera sensor to match the focal length of the main camera sensor. Kind of like what Huawei did with the P20 Pro. Hold on, let me take another drink of water here. So if we had those working in tandem, you had the larger camera sensor providing all of that really nice soft bokeh. You had the smaller camera sensor filling in detail, especially with the glass lens element that smaller camera sensor has. And then you had the ultra-wide camera sensor. I think that would be an amazing combination of camera sensors for hardware. Aditya, to follow up on the second half of your question, Google only having one rear-facing shooter, I don't think is going to be a detriment to what people look for when they're shopping an iPhone or a Pixel. If you want amazing photography, or if you want the best possible video creation platform, I would not recommend a Pixel. What I constantly recommend the Pixel for is one of the best out-of-the-pocket, touch one button, get pretty photo, what with the good colors. That's what the Pixel does really well. That snapshotty, on-the-fly, auto mode kind of processing. It is phenomenal for that. But when you want to dig into settings, when you need to capture something specific, when you want to control the various aspects of what your camera is trying to do, I do not think that Google's solution is competitive. It's why I keep, even with the smaller sensor and with some of the limitations of the V-Series phones, it's why I keep coming back to the V-Series phones for video, and why I keep coming back to Huawei for stills, is that I think those phones do manual photography and manual cinematography better than what Google can do with a single camera sensor and auto awesome HDR processing. Especially because I'm not a big fan of the HDR effect. I like really contrasty, hard edge shadows, practically silhouettes. I like dark photos. I don't need everything to be ultra bright, auto brightening, HDR-y, unicorn barf saturation. That's not what gets me off about a good photo. So when we're looking at the next Pixel, we can get into some of those iPhone-like debates. Like, you know, we're going to pay $800 plus for a Pixel 3 XL. So what am I really getting for my money? I'm not getting the biggest battery. I'm not getting the most number of camera sensors. I'm not getting the biggest storage or upgradable or expandable storage or anything like that. But what you're getting is a top to bottom product. If your top to bottom product is a P20 Pro, then you are making a statement about what you value in terms of photography. Larger camera sensor, better image processing, AI-enabled gyro stabilization. That stuff makes a big difference in capturing content in a way that you dictate the look, the feel, and the output of what you're trying to accomplish. When you pay $800 plus for a Pixel, you want the most seamless, the briefest interaction, the fastest, simplest interaction to get any kind of photo that just looks good, that has pretty colors, that is sharp, is well focused, and is well saturated. And then if you like HDR effects, you flip on the HDR effects, and that's what you get. So that to me is, I don't think it's going to be a question, is only one camera sensor enough? Google's computational algorithms and the fact that they always polish them up really, really well for the hardware that they match them with, that optimization is really, really good. I think that's going to be fine. But it's just about being fair and intellectually honest about what the phone is trying to achieve. And it's why I really bristle when someone acts like there's a thumbs up, thumbs down, winner, loser, something like that. If you can't join the conversation with at least enough self-awareness to say, I shoot like this, but if you shoot like that, then you won't like the camera I use. If you shoot full auto, you want that juicy HDR oversaturated look, you should not use the cameras that I like. You should absolutely avoid LGs, especially with the AI camera, because everything comes out blue. So just avoid LG, ThinQ, AI, not for you. But if you want to get into controlling the shutter speed in your video so that you can properly lock the exposure with amazing focus peaking for manual focus so that you can, I keep showing it. It's on my my Instagram. If you go to Instagram.com/SomeGadgetGuy, there's a photo of my daughter taken at sunrise in a bus on the 405, and the focus is nailed on her eyelashes. That would not have been possible on any phone without focus peaking. I could have pulled that photo off on a Galaxy because, a new Galaxy, they ripped off LG's focus peaking implementation, but it really only worked shooting full manual on an LG. I want you to think about that. How do you take a photo of a backlit, cranky toddler in a bus bouncing down the 405 and you only have, I think I only had about 10 seconds to get the sunrise light where I wanted it to be. That's it, man. You can't do that full auto. You can't do that auto awesome. By the time you've tapped the screen to get it to figure out focus and it's not confusing the background for your subject, because your subject's super dark, but the background is super bright, I really truly do not believe that any computational photography or any auto mode would have landed that shot. It only happened on my V30. So that's the game. Let's see. Or a bunch of questions about stuff like this. So from Kyle Ruggles, the V20 did better than the G5, but it came to the wide distortion. Oh, that's right, for the ultra wide camera sensor. From Kyle Ruggles, actually the larger sensor would be better for detail, much like when we compare a medium format to a full frame. More fine detail, less halos around detail at 100% crops. I definitely agree with that. But what I think could be interesting is pairing the same focal length with a smaller sensor to also then help contribute information, because you'd have a longer depth of field. So it might be a little liney or a little over sharpened or a little edgy, but if you had the 2/3 inch sensor paired with a 1/3 inch sensor but matched focal lengths, then you could choose naturally on the fly a softer depth of field or a longer depth of field with a better preservation of detail. I think that would be an extreme engineering feat that I'm not sure LG has the talent to pull off, but it could be really interesting. From DTL and Nil, a wide sensor with the Samsung dual aperture plus Google software should make a viable single shooter. Again, it's just like, I love us tech nerds, because we'll just put everything in. Just do everything, and then it would be perfect. From Travis Walker, Juan, this is the only important question. You say the Pixel and a Pixel and an iPhone when actually talking about the phones, but during reviews, you drop the articles like a caveman. Why? Actually, just to bother you, Travis. I make a conscious effort to go, what would Travis Walker bristle if I described this phone like this? A part of this is also psychological. I spend so much time with these devices that they start to develop personalities. So I don't call you the Travis. I call you Travis. Like after a point, you say the Pixel so many times that the article stops meaning what you want it to mean, and you've also developed a relationship with the phone. So you start shifting around the language. It's just, how do you get through talking about a phone 5, 10, 15 minutes at a time and not sound like you're being overly repetitive with every single designation of the phone that you have to bring up? That's why sometimes I'll say, what Samsung's doing here is really interesting. And so the Galaxy is pulling this off. So for Galaxy S9, they're trying to accomplish this. You see, even in 3 sentences back to back, you still know exactly what product I'm talking about, but I can point to the different aspects of the team who made the product as a proper noun, and then the product as a more colloquial relationship between me and that product. So you got to shake it up. Otherwise, you're just going to bash your head against your keyboard. Let's see. A bunch of other questions and stuff like here. Bear Paw 1, when I was a photographer for glamour shots, toddlers are always the hardest to shoot. They never stand still. I'll tell you, man, smartphone cameras have gotten so good, but the true test has been, can you take photos of kids in action? When you let the camera do everything for you, when you let the camera make every decision for you, they are still not fast enough to keep up with the toddler. The second you've tapped on the screen to focus, the camera is going to make a decision on the exposure. Most of the time, it's going to make a decision to try and make the brightest, most vivid photo it can, which means it needs to use a longer exposure or a higher ISO. But nerds get way too cranky about grain. Oh, there's grain in the photo. We can't have grain. So you make up more of that with a longer shutter speed. So what is anathema to shooting toddlers is longer shutter speeds or multiple exposures for HDR. That's the worst. You need faster shutter speeds, and I'm fine with a little extra grain in my photos if I can freeze the action where I wanted it to be and get that nice crystal crisp smile from my daughter as she's running through the living room with like balloon animals on her head or something like that. So anyway, that's the gig. Travis Walker, don't shoot toddlers. Well, it's really hard. I mean, if you can shoot a toddler, it's because, they're not doing it right. They're too slow. That's how you thin out the herd and you keep the gene pool. Never mind. So I think on that note, as we're talking about shooting toddlers, is about as good a place as any to wrap this up. If you're like me, you're probably feeling sad. Mexico lost. I was hoping that they'd make it to their Game 5, but against Brazil, I figured that was going to be too tall a hill to climb. This World Cup has been amazing for subverting all of my expectations. And so I hope you guys have been having fun following that content too. Just the last little bits of wrapping up our discussion today. Definitely be on the lookout for the remainder of my Key 2 coverage. Like I said, as soon as I'm done with this podcast and putting out the audio feed for this podcast, I'm going to be wrapping up that Key 2 review and then the Key 2 camera review hopefully over the weekend. That'll be on patreon.com. So hopefully you guys and gals will enjoy that. Keep up the chatter. I really appreciate all the people who have been talking about my videos, sharing my videos, throwing them out there on things like Reddit, not just in like smaller things, but if I ever see one of my videos on our Android, well, that helps keep production going. So that's kind of a big deal for me. I do want to share one last idea, and this is, hold on, let me get window capture here. And this is going to take me just a second because I need to get the right, there we go. And then I'm going to shrink this down a little so you can see it better. So I have been struggling with to merch or not to merch. And this is one of the concepts I've come up with. I didn't actually intend for you guys just to see this immediately. I was going to talk about it a little bit more and tease it. But I've been working on a megapixel design template. And I focus grouped it with the folks on my Patreon, and they gave me some feedback. I'm still finalizing this as a concept. This isn't totally cleaned up, but I think I'm going to be doing a Megapickle sticker and a Megapickle coffee mug. And this is one of the designs that I'm going to be putting out there. I've really struggled with merch. Some notion that I can put out something that you guys would want to buy and actually use, and not just make it some sort of gimmick or, just like a piece of text on a t-shirt, something that could be kind of fun, kind of interesting. And the one pun I keep coming back to is Megapickles. If I go through my archives on YouTube videos, it was me and Pocket Now arrived at Megapickles at the same time as a malpropism for mispronouncing megapixels. And I feel like I can own the continued use of Megapickle as one of my dad jokes in every review that I've ever put out, that I've used that in, even before I was a dad. So that's one of the design concepts. I'm going to be workshopping that a little bit more. Again, that's going to go to the Patreon. And if you want to weigh in, if you have some feedback, you want to offer me some ideas on what to do with that, then any conversation on that will be greatly appreciated. But I'm hoping to have the design finalized for next week. So hopefully on our next Monday morning tech podcast, at the end of the podcast, we can throw to this as something that will be a real product that you could potentially buy. From Farid, you have to relish it more. Oh, you better believe it. Oh man, how many times have I done bad food puns? Because every time I tell a joke like that, I fall awful. But yes. I'm DT Anil. We need But I Digress posters or stickers. I am working on a design for But I Digress. But Megapickles is near and dear to my heart. And also, I got some feedback. The first concept for Megapickle was one big pickle, a mega pickle, and people thought that was maybe a bit too phallic. So instead, I'm going with a number 5 pickles instead. But yeah, that will hopefully be a real thing, fingers crossed, that you can buy starting next week. And again, I wouldn't be producing this kind of content. I wouldn't be talking about it if it weren't for the amazing people out there. You guys watching these videos, commenting, joining the conversation. If it weren't for this participation, I would probably be doing something else with my life. So I can't thank you all enough, because this has been an amazing ride and a crazy amount of fun. So I'm super excited to be sharing this stuff with you guys, and onwards and upwards. Again, getting something like this out the door is kind of a big get for me. So I really appreciate all the conversation. So, folks, I think that's going to do it this week for the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show. I hope you guys have a fun week with your technology. Be on the lookout for a couple of videos coming up, the possible future merch on the horizon. And you guys know where you can find me around the rest of the internet, at SomeGadgetGuy on the Twitters, the Instagrams. You can hit me up on Facebook, though I don't use Facebook that often. And I hope you'll catch me next week for another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show. Be well, have fun, be safe, be cool, and have some Megapickles. They're delicious.